We are delighted that you're joining us for another podcast of Wake Up Aligned, and it is the podcast for chiropractors where we get to talk about chiropractic lifestyle, and topics of interest. You can contact us through our email, and that is mailbag@amcfamily.com.
Welcome back to Wake Up Aligned. I am Tom Owen, president of AMC Aligned, and I am going to be your host today. And I've got one of my very good friends, my dear friends, business associate, and pretty much rock star when it comes to mentoring chiropractors. He's mentored some pretty incredible, impressive results. That being Dr. Jeremy Brubaker is here with me today. But you know that when I say it that way, I know he doesn't like that, me blowing smoke, but it's not smoke. The fact of the matter is, Dr. Jeremy has mentored across every facet of type, technique, background, personality, and regardless, he always ends up the rubber meeting the road. So whether it be from meager beginnings to cloud nine performance and anywhere in between, Dr. Jeremy always seems to know how to move the needle. And so going to be interesting to see where we end up today, Dr. Jeremy. But welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom. It's always fun to be here and talk about chiropractic and talk to chiropractors and hopefully give some inspiration, motivation, and purpose here along the way.
Yeah, kind of crazy. I was thinking we've been working together for a minute, haven't we? Every year it's like, how's another year gone by?
That's right. I think we've known each other over 20 years and probably working pretty closely for about 15 years.
At least. I know you like to keep thinking that you're still young, but you're never going to catch up with me until I'm not here anymore. Then you might catch me, but
I think I remind you at times I'll never be as old as you. So, that's how it goes.
That's how it goes. So anyway, folks, we're going to jump into the show, and I know it'll be interesting to see where we go. Going to try to do this show kind of innate and just see where it takes us. There's a lot going on inside of AMC Aligned. Speaking of things going on, we've got a summit coming up in Orlando, I think probably about 5 weeks from now. And it's going to continue the work that we've been doing this year. We made an adjustment into the curriculum, and the feedback has been really tremendous from the membership. So those Thursday afternoon, 1:30, it starts at 1:30, folks. The attendance has been great, and the engagement, but more importantly, the results has really hit the bottom line in practices across the board. And then the depth and genius classes, that's where I've been spending a lot of my time in there on those panels, and it's really been hands-on. It's been to a different sub-level of the content, the principles behind the principles. And so we're going to continue that work. Now, we do have a little bit of a surprise coming for those listening. There's going to be some surprise content in Orlando, so be prepared. But the important thing is get yourself there. All right. So whatever it takes, I have an old saying, get on the next thing smoking, because that's where it happens. Summits, certified training centers, and then what Dr. Jeremy does, guiding you through the system and holding you accountable. That's where needles move consistently, but nothing ever replicates the summits. So before I throw anything to you to see what you want to talk about today, I thought I'd give a different shout out today. A lot of times I, just give performance shout outs, but I'm just excited to take the opportunity because it's just been in the last several days. And here we are recording this show this morning, but I thought my shout out would be just to welcome the newest members to the Aligned family. Dr. Derek Maxon from Richmond, Texas, just within the last week or so, came on board. And man, talking about, I mean, I don't want to get into everybody's background, but he and I talked at length, and you talking about somebody that's got a lot of potential, but has never been able to break through those barriers and those plateaus. He's got the makings if he's willing to do the work. Dr. Abel Ramos has come on board. He's going to be looking to go into the Right Start program, and he's out in Texas as well. Then you got Dr. Kiera Williams, another Right Starter, came out of Palmer, your alma mater.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's right.
But she's over in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I just wanted to say welcome to them. Hopefully they're tuning in to the show, and you're probably just now getting your feet wet. And trust me, the speed will pick up. So be ready. But Dr. Jeremy, I'll throw it to you, because I never know exactly where we're going to go when I have you on the show, but it's always good stuff. But do you have any shout outs from your roster, from just basically what you're working on day to day?
Sure, I'll give you a couple. We just had a doc up in North Carolina just open up his doors, Dr. Zach Dunbar. So I want to give him some kudos just this week, Monday of this week. So excited for him. I think he had over 30 new patients on his books for the first couple weeks here in practice. So he is, anybody that's opened up a practice understands those first couple weeks. It's like running around with your hair on fire, but he's doing a great job keeping his focus and intention on what's important, which are the patients coming through the door. So just excited for him and where he's going, and for him to see his potential realized.
Couple of things on him. First of all, he's a great example of, you're a director of the Right Start program, and there's a reason why it's named Right Start. Step-by-step processes of why is he in that town, why is he in that particular location, and how he's gone about it. And he's been diligent in his work ethic for it. So it's not a surprise when you do it right to have 30 new patients on your on your schedule when you first open. A lot of listeners are going, how in the world did he do that? Right? Well, it didn't happen by running some social media ads 2 weeks before he opened. It was boots on the ground and a lot of engagement in the community, and you have to know how to do that. So kudos to him, and such a good guy. Dr. Zach's he's got a good heart and a good work ethic, willingness to do whatever it takes and break through his comfort zones, because he has had his comfort zones challenged in that process. So sorry, I know I jumped in on your very first shout out, but
no, that's fine.
Dr. Zach.
That's absolutely true. And he's been to multiple summits preparing for that too. So he's kind of checked the boxes of what it takes to get a practice off the ground, and what we love to call an explosive opening. So I expect some good reports and some honorable mentions coming from him here in upcoming weeks as well. So kudos to him, Dr. Zach. One other one, and I know we got to get on to some content here today, but some of my favorite members over the years out in San Antonio, Texas, the Petersons. And I say the Petersons because it's a family practice. Started with Dr. Ward, then Dr. Tim, and brother Josh, and Ann and Gretchen, just that whole crew. And of course, their extended family, which is their team in that practice that makes it happen. But they had a record month here just this past month. And really the commitment and dedication to chiropractic, to purpose, to their patients, and to the principles that we teach inside of Aligned. I mean, they gravitate to that, and they walk the walk. Not perfectly over the years, like all of us, but consistent. And so just excited for them to break up over, I think, 106,000 if we want to talk numbers for the month. But that is well-deserved and well earned in service to their patients. And so we might swing back around to a couple points that got them there, maybe in this conversation today. But just kudos to them and where they're heading as well. So there's a couple good shout outs here this morning.
Those are two great shout outs, but interesting enough that they come from two totally different ends of the spectrum. So I don't know why, if you had a strategy as to why you picked those two, but listen to what Dr. Jeremy just said. Same results, two different ends. Dr. Tim Peterson is a second-generation chiropractor. It's a family, been around AMC probably close to 20 years, somewhere in that neighborhood, the family has, and yet still pressing through, breaking through, and reaching new heights. And yet the exact same system is being applied by a young man that brand new. His first days of owning his own practice and starting his own practice happened this week. And yet they're both breaking through comfort zones. They're building upon an identity. They're building upon their beliefs, their purpose, their values. They're bringing the same components. So it goes to show you, folks, principles never fail you. And it doesn't matter where you are in your walk, where you are in your career. It doesn't matter if you're brand new coming out of school and want to open, or if you're, 10 years in and you're just plateaued, or you're desperate and you don't know how you're going to pay the bills next month. Either way, you plug principles in and principles never fail. I thought real quick, Dr. Jeremy, and maybe this is somewhere we can go on our topic, because I've been mentoring some doctors here just recently, and I find that two of the vital keys to getting results in life, and this is like something I teach my kids too, right, is there's two attitudes. Now, concepts, principles, processes, procedures, if you want to call it, systematics, those are two components that have to be applied to the formula to success. But an attitude and an action plan are the other half of the formula. And as I was saying, those two components is to stay humble, and that's hard to do, man. That's just, it's easy to say it, but it's to stay humble and teachable. And that's the thing with Dr. Tim Peterson, right? There you got an example of a guy, he's seen it all, practically done it all, grown his practice, and yet he's still open to accountability. He's open to reason. He's open to be challenged. And that's that same principle. I looked it up while you were talking. Proverbs 10:17 says, people who accept discipline are on the pathway to life, but those who ignore correction will go astray. And I just think that's imperative. There's two components that I've been mentoring on. One, stay humble, stay teachable. It's the biggest key to continue to grow. Here I am, I've got more in my rearview mirror than I do in my windshield of life. I'm just getting older. I can't stop that. But I have not arrived. I'm not done. I'm still eager to learn new things, take on new tasks, learn new skills. You have to stay green and growing, or you will end up ripe and rotting. And there's the Bible right there, my word, saying that exact same thing. Joe Charbonneau taught that to me. You're either green and growing, or you're ripe and rotting. I remember when he taught that to me 20 something years ago, and then I turn around and he didn't create that. There's written in 2,000-year-old text that says people who accept discipline are on the pathway to life. Those who ignore correction will go astray. That sounds like you're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. So anyway, I just thought I'd jump in on that because, you can have all the talent and intelligence in the world, But if you're not willing to be held accountable and take discipline and correction and insight, that means you're leaning completely on all your own rationale, reasoning, and what you've accumulated. And then that's going to lead to plateaus or a decline. Most of us are not that disciplined to not go astray. I mean, you and me, right? The average person in society, we get off track so easily. You can have a goal in life. You can have a absolute, this is where I'm going. And it's kind of like, you and I both live on the water. We'd live, 10, 15 houses apart on the same waterway, right? And we take our boats out and we go out that Jacksonville Inlet and we take a heading. Well, it's easy to take a heading, but the wind starts hitting you, the current starts hitting you, you got a following sea, and that compass is going all over the place. Well, if we didn't have a heading to begin with, what's going to end up happening? We're probably going to end up going, at best, we're going to go in circles of life. We're going to kind of don't confuse motion with progress. Or what do, folks, when we get off track? We end up on the rocks. We eventually go run aground up on a sandbar and we're stuck. That's what that's what I'm trying to point out here, folks, is just, it's one thing to have the talent. It's one thing to have the intelligence, but the wisdom is to have accountability and take insight and be teachable, and then be willing to put the work ethic behind it. And that's where Dr. Zach Dunbar comes in. Your shout out there. Zach Dunbar turns around. Okay, he's been teachable, but more importantly, he's been willing to put the work in. And now, first week in practice, he's going to end up having the practice that everyone envies, but it's going to be because he put the work in, and he's going to continue to put the work in. So, don't know if that's exactly where you wanted to run with, Dr. Jeremy, but I think you wanted to throw some topics, but where does that fit in?
Sure. Well, it fits in with some things that I wanted to do today with you, because throughout the course of weeks and working with doctors and mentoring them, you get questions, you get, seeking answers, people that are humble, that are seeking to be green and growing. They ask some questions, and I got some good ones this week, and I thought maybe I could throw some at you off the cuff and just kind of see how your innate's firing this morning and go from there.
How do you like that, folks? He comes on my show and they're going to pepper me with questions. I'm supposed to pepper the questions.
Right, we're going to flip the script here today.
Flip the script. Yep. All right.
And it kind of revolves around kind of success and successful people. And one of the questions this week, was, some ultra successful people. And again, that definition can be whatever you want it to be. But the question was, how do they find their purpose? And again, inside AMC, principle wise, over the years and in our recordings, and Dr. Owen, you're talking about a heading, in a boat, kind of to me, kind of parallels a purpose. I got a heading, I know where I'm going, so I've got to set my course and direction there. But the question was from a younger doc who's relatively at this point in his career, seeing success and hitting some goals, but just finding maybe there's something more to just this practice and this life than just hitting my number goals and hitting my patient goals, which is great. And he's very thankful. But he's like kind of seeing it, which I thought was some great insight, going, well, what's going to keep me moving forward past hitting some of these goals? And so describe just briefly, if you can, what that purpose, chief aim is, and kind of how does that, because you have one, and you always have, and you've taught us over the years, and to have one for ourselves. But what is that? How did you develop that? How did that come to be? I know that's going to be different for everybody, but there is something that drives Tom every day into the office. He doesn't need to be here every day. He doesn't need to be talking with new members and trying to help and guide them and give them hope. But there's some essence to that. And I thought that might be helpful for all of us, because I think we all run up against comfort levels. We run up against times where we kind of meet and achieve things, and then we look around and go, well, is this it? What else? And that's what I've found talking with successful folks is they always have something that drives them past average comfort. So throw that to you. I know there's probably 4 questions in there, but start with kind of chief aim. What is that? And how important is that to you?
Well, that's a loaded one because you've got 2 different motivational DNAs that typically are walking around out there, right? And those motivational DNAs end up, depending on how they're developed or underdeveloped, that's how you end up with these, groupings in society. And I mentioned Joe Charbonneau earlier, just an absolute genius, one of my mentors. But he taught that there's 60% of the world operates of societies. They operate with, they're kind of like they're the salt of the earth. It's mediocrity. It's mediocrity of just waiting for your ship to come in, and nothing good, nothing bad, but they live 50 weeks a year to work for 2 weeks of vacation, and they don't practice having fun. So typically the 2 weeks of vacation is not a lot of fun because they've been practicing the wrong way for 50 weeks. So that's about 60% of the people that we hang out with just live in that world of mediocrity. And then that broke down that there was about 10% of people that are actually great managers. And then there's 3% of the population that are visionaries. And then there's 27% that we don't really want to talk about, but I mean, they're just basically stuck in a negative role that they can't dig out of it. There's, the sky's going to fall no matter what you do. Now, what's that got to do with chief aim, right? Well, chief aim, I firmly believe, is developed. It's not something that you necessarily wake up one morning. Something inspires you maybe at a young age, but maybe some listeners out there and go, well, I've never been really inspired about anything. I just went to chiropractic school because I went to a career day and they said it was a good way to make money, and it didn't take as long to get the degree as it did to other paths, right? That's not a chief aim, and that's not going to develop a purpose. So when you ask me that, where does my chief aim come from? I mean, it comes from, for me, early development of, and I know people get tired of hearing, if they're in my classes and stuff, they'll eventually, there's no way that I'm going to end up talking for a day and somewhere quiet time and affirmations don't come in, right? And what is quiet time? What is affirmations? Affirmations is almost comical these days. Like, there's actually comedians that have made jokes about affirmations, but guess what? You're affirming something. All right. Every listener on here, you're affirming something to yourself every day. We're almost all our own worst critics. We have no problem whatsoever criticizing ourselves, picking the little things that we're doing wrong. And that leads to a mindset of well, what's the point? Why do, what's the next level? You just basically negative self-talk, and you don't even realize you do it. You'll use the word I can't. So that's like one of the most common, I can't do that. Well, you can't do that, or you won't do that, or you're not willing to do that. I try to teach my daughter, as of this recording, she's just turned 15, and she knows all my tricks, right? And I say, Michaela, honey, whether you say you can or you can't, either way, you're right. And she goes, that's right, Daddy, I can't. She made her mind up that she can't. So when I say it that way is, my quiet time and my affirmation started at a very young age. I started developing. People want to know, well, how do you write affirmations? Typically, you just go through an exercise of 2 weeks to a month, of catching every negative talk, every negative thought, every time you say, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or that's not possible, or why do I even bother? Try to capture all your negative affirmations. And then that's how you write them. You write it down on 180, and that is how all of a sudden your concepts will start changing. Now we talk I talk a lot about concepts. What is success? You said it. You in your introduction to this question, you said, well, success is different for everybody. That's correct. That is true. Some people's idea of success is I want to play golf 3 days a week. I want to make enough money to live comfortably. What is all that? That's a concept that has led to a goal, and you're satisfied with that goal. So you're successful with that. But is that a chief aim that's driving you beyond the golf course? Right? If your total goal is to get that golf score down, well, that's your chief aim. Finding things that inspire you, which I've tuned in, is typically, as I've done the affirmations and I've grown through that over the years, finding something that is outside myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing. If your measuring stick is your bank account, and your big goal, like we talked about Dr. Zach right now, Dunbar. I don't mean to make him my example, but I remember talking to him early on, right? And I said, I want a goal from you. What goal do you want? And his head at that time, he goes, man, if I could ever have a Ford Raptor truck, that would just be. And I'm just like, Ford, that's as high as you can think, right? Now, I'm not making fun of Ford. That's an awesome truck. But the point is, when he gets to that Ford Raptor truck, and he will, guess what? That Ford Raptor truck's, it gathers rust just like every other one.
That's right.
It doesn't satisfy in the long run. It's fun to shoot for these things, and it's fun to have them, right? Take a boat away from me, and I'm not going to be as fulfilled as a person, right? I want my boats. Yeah, what drives you? Okay, well, that doesn't drive me to do what I do. I want to inspire. I want to do more. When that life is done and that there is no more in the windshield of time, I don't want anything. I don't want any tread left on my tires.
Sure.
In the end, I fell in love with learning that in the end, all that's left are the lives you've touched and to what extent they were changed. That's my drive every day, is if I don't get up and I don't come in here and I don't try to make a difference in someone else's life, then I have wasted my life. If I have made it all about the bank, but by the way, folks, there's a lot of truth. That old saying is, money is nothing more than the shavings of a good carpenter's tool while constructively at work. What's that mean? Constructively means tuned in, focused on my art, focused on what I'm doing, and so on. The money will pile up. So over my career, the money has piled up, but it was never, oh, if I can ever get to this, or if I can get to that level of my investments, or if I can have that boat, then I've arrived. That's shallow to me. And that's the drive of people. I'm sorry, I'm taking this and running with it, but
no, it's great.
When you asked me when I first started, I'm like, well, there's two different motivational DNAs. Okay, there's a producer, and then there's a connector. Everybody fits in one of those categories, and then there's hybrids. And by the way, everybody has some of each. Okay, you'll find that when you take that grade, you take that evaluation, you'll find that most people will have a stronger tendency to one of the two, but most people have some of each. And then you've got some that are just off the chart producers and they have no connector. What does that mean? There are people walking around this world that their goal are the toys, their goal is the money, their goal is, and guess what? They're still going to have, most of them are still going to have to provide some kind of service to humanity to get it in most cases.
Sure.
Right? But their drive is the money. Then you got people that you're probably coaching. A lot of chiropractors are stronger connectors than they are producers. Why? You wouldn't have gone into that discipline. You went against the grain when you became a chiropractor. You already got inspired about, about a technique that in some circles is not all that popular. You went against the grain because of why? Of a bigger purpose. You saw something in chiropractic, and then you have a love for people. Okay. So I would have to say that I'm probably more producer, but I think the older I've gotten, the stronger I've gotten on the connector side. That, you know what, it's never about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll throw it back to you here in a second, Dr. Jeremy, but to answer your question, how do you develop a chief aim? All I can tell you is what's worked for me is that my chief aim is never about me. If your chief aim is all about you, now your chief aim, it's fine to make your chief aim and your goals and your purpose and all that about your family. That's okay. If that's your drive, that's fine. But is it your patients? Is it your community? And the bigger you can make that chief aim and those goals, that vision, is it about like East Side Chiropractic? When you name your clinic and your business, you're naming your vision and you call it East Side Chiropractic. And I'm sorry if your name's, you're out there listening and you're like, he's talking to me. But East Side Chiropractic, what are you telling the community? You're telling you're there to help the people on the East Side.
Sure.
Where the guy that inspired both you and me, Gonstead Clinic, he had a different vision about that, right? He built a stinking airport next to his clinic. He built a hotel.
That's
Why?
right.
He had a vision that he wanted to help the world and develop something. And he had people flying from all over the world there.
Sure.
That's a different chief aim and it's a different vision. But was it about Gonstead? All that he accomplished? Was it about him?
He would say, I did this for the profession. Right? So he had a bigger vision.
That's right.
And the profession trickled down to the people, right?
Yep.
So
I'm small potatoes in the long run. There's nothing special about me, but when I first started AMC, when me and Dr. Owen first started AMC, I had a pretty small vision. I remember saying, I vividly remembered me and Dad both saying we'd help with anybody within 200 miles of Chattanooga. If we could drive to your office and be back to sleep in our own bed, we did not want to do the dog and pony show. We did not want to be, dog and pony show. We didn't want to. Okay, that's a pretty small vision, right? And then I had Vince Scelfo from Saginaw, Michigan. I found him sleeping in his car in the parking lot of the Tri-State Clinic in Rossville, Georgia. And he comes in and he had heard about us and it drove through the night. And it was that day sitting in that consultation room talking to him that it just started hitting me. We saw this is bigger than us. This is not about my comfort of sleeping in my own bed. What is it going to take to meet the need for every chiropractor anywhere? And that's why now, 25 years later, you have a company called AMC Aligned, and you've got guys like Dr. Jeremy Brubaker, Dr. Tara Horrell, Shannon McMurtry, Dr. Todd Osborne, and the list goes on and on and on, that are completely dedicated to what? A different vision. And that vision came from a chief aim. It initially started with okay, we got to do whatever it takes to figure out a way to help any chiropractor anywhere in any situation. Now that's a chief aim, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The vision came later, but we started with an attitude of, I'm going to do whatever it takes to help any chiropractor anywhere, any technique. That's kind of a chief aim. And was that chief aim about me and making enough money to buy my first boat?
No,
No,
of course.
no. I had goals. You know as well as we're sitting here. I literally, folks, just bought a new boat. I mean,
That's right. It's nice.
This is an addiction I have. About every 3 or 4 years, Jeremy knows Tom's going to come up with a reason to sell a perfectly good boat and buy a new boat because I got to have a new toy. It's me. But is that the chief aim of why I come in here?
No.
Shoot, no. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. And when I'm out on that boat, who and what am I thinking about? It's my quiet time out on that boat that gives me creativity that I come back in here and everybody knows, right, Jeremy? I'll shut up after this. Everybody knows that the last thing that you guys want me to do is take days off and go out on my boat or to go archery hunting, right? Because everybody knows when I come back from those trips, dear God, Tom's going to have 6 to 8 new projects and new things, and this is what we're going to do. Because I sit out there and all I do is get creative about how can we improve the service and reach one more and improve the service of what we're doing with the ones we already have.
That's right. And Snacks, our producer, is smirking across the table because we both know that it's absolutely a fact and true, which is great. So circle back around. What I heard from you was a purpose, a chief aim is developed, number one. And it's intentionally developed by, again, your method, quiet time, affirmations, really introspective work, going what really does drive me and what will, drive me past the new boat, right? I mean, that's fun and that's great. And that's a good shavings of the carpenter's tools at work. But so those out there that are looking for purpose, I'm hearing it's not wrapped up just in, hey, I decided my chief aim and purpose today. It's more, be patient with that. And that was the young doctor I was talking to. He was this, I want my purpose. I want this. Which is great. I think that's a great place to start. And that was kind of our conversation as well, going, well, it's developed. And sometimes that concept. And so that was one thing that I heard, develop the concepts and can, be teachable, be moldable, looking to grow. And the second thing I heard was, especially with your chief aim, was that something you can show up and accomplish today. That purpose can, you said at the end, all that's left is the lives that are touched and to the extent they were changed. Well, that's something you walk in to the office this morning on this podcast, and we're accomplishing that right now, hopefully, right? And so that's another thing. We think the purpose is like out there. It's a goal to achieve, or really that chief aim I'm hearing can be something I can show up and accomplish a portion of that right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, two quick responses to that, and you're on it because first of all, I firmly believe, especially in chiropractic, and that's what this podcast is for. We're talking to people that are in the people business. So if you don't want to invest in people, you're in the wrong business. Okay, let's get it straight. You're in the service industry. So if your chief aim is all about you, you're not going to like the results of that.
Or you could, and then it'd be really empty at the tail end of that.
Yeah. So number one, I would say consistency is the key. What you're saying, it's developed over time. It's consistency. And then second, always remember that you said it. You can do this every day. If you make your chief aim and your purpose about other people, the most important person in your life, that's how I can fulfill my chief aim, right? And you can do it, listeners, you do it. I mean, the most important person in your life is the person sitting in front of you at any one moment, right? That means when I'm at lunch and I'm interacting with the waitress, right? Talking to the waitress, I can invest in that waitress. I can build that relationship. I'm investing in them on how I communicate. If you just keep that in mind and you live that way, you're going to fail miserably every day. I fail miserably every day. You know, I'm going to have things that I wish I would have done different. But if that's my chief aim, odds are I'm going to do that more than I'm not. But if I'm wandering with something that's all about the numbers and it's just, now that's going to become mundane.
Sure.
Right. So that's it's a deep subject to try to.
Well, we got to one of my 6 questions I had to pepper you with, so we may have to revisit this in the future.
Well, that's what's going to happen, and guess what, folks? He did that without giving me any prep time. Just think what would have happened if he would have prepped me for that. This is what it is. So you've got 5 more questions to ask. So we've got 5 more shows to do here in the near future. So we'll get to those. Do you want to give me any hint on what it might be?
I may need to give you a bullet point outline so we can get through them. I think that's what we'll do next time.
Well, folks, the subject matter of the day, I didn't know that was coming, but hopefully you get something out of that. And look, I don't have it perfected. I said it, I'm green and growing, and I'm not ripe and rotting. And so I've still got improvement. I could still be my worst critic. I'm going to fail and drop the ball multiple times today, even in my chief aim. But if I stay consistent and I keep coming back to it, and I make sure that chief aim and that purpose is always not about me, and it's about someone else. It could be about our producer Snacks here today, right? Next 15 minutes, I might be able to invest in him, and then I can invest in the patients, or I can invest in Dr. Brubaker, whoever or whatever whoever I'm talking to at any one time about what subject matter, doesn't matter. You can always plug into that. So I find it best to make my chief aim and my purpose about other people. And if I do that, I tend to be much happier and more fulfilled. And then I accomplish a whole lot more than most people, the average person, thinks. I get that questioned all the time, right? People go, how in the world does Tom change so many hats, control so many different businesses or, departments and things of that nature, and still have time to have lots of fun? All right. Well, consistency, efficiency. I end up being more productive and ultimately more profitable. Sounds like a formula that I've used before.
Sounds vaguely familiar, I think.
Yeah.
Something we heard before. So as we sign off today, I think of this conversation, I wanted to add a couple of just practical things, especially for our aligned members, some tools that you have at your disposal to keep walking towards your purpose, towards your chief aim. And they're going to sound familiar because if you're a new member, like you mentioned, the new ones that just have come on board here recently, they're going to start with something we call successful daily routine. And I'm not going to unpack it because that'll be a whole nother show, but that's one tool that we have in our toolbox. If you're not consistently going back and evaluating and looking at that, start today. Our made-up mind is another great one. And Dr. Zach, he has to have a made-up mind for all the things that he's dealt with to get to this point and move forward with. The Petersons as well, those examples. It takes a made-up mind. You said it, and being present each moment where you should be, not distracted by other aspects of life at the wrong time. That doesn't mean I ignore, but we're present here in this room together, focused on this. That's it. And if I'm distracted, this isn't going to be a very quality conversation. So those are just some 3 or 4 practical things I had written down if we'd got through the other 5 questions I had. But
yeah, we could do a whole nother show on consistency and organization, tracking, right? What's the one thing that is always within about 10 feet of me, right? Here I am. Now granted, I've got this walking computer in my hand here, but Jeremy knows as sure as I'm sitting here, somewhere nearby is my day planner.
Your day planner. Yep.
right? I have a day planner. I just jot down anything and everything that I've got to get done today, or I want to get done, or goals, or new creative ideas. That's where my creative ideas will get written. And every day, whatever I don't get done today is going to go to the top of the page tomorrow. So that's another thing, is that, you got to be organized, and you got to be consistent, and then you got to give your innate time to be creative. And then you keep the chief aim that it's never about you. You do those right there, and you're on track. Now you got to apply the right principles and the right processes. Sure. I told you that earlier. Concepts and procedures and processes are just as important. But anyway, we could go on and on and on this show, but we're up against the clock, folks. So we're going to wrap it up today. Again, if you here's something made up mind he mentioned, make up your mind right now that you will make it to Orlando. There's only 6 summits a year, man. I mean, what do I got to do? Hit you over the head with a stick, a 2x4? There's only 6 of these, and the traction hits every time. And Dr. Jeremy, you mentioned Zach Dunbar has been to a bunch of them. He's already in Depth and Genius, and he just opened.
That's right.
Right? He's into advanced materials. That means he's invested into that. Tim Peterson, he had a long string of never missing a summit to begin with. It's not a mystery. The traction happens at these summits. So you've got about 5 weeks, I believe it is, 4 or 5 weeks. Make a commitment and get yourself to Orlando. Even if you said, oh, I've got this scheduled, or I've got that, or I've got a birthday, or whatever. My dad always said, it's an event, not a date.
Mm-hmm.
He says, what's more important? He goes, my purpose overtakes that. So anyway, folks, like I said, I can keep on rolling, but summit's just around the corner. Make your commitment, be there, engage with your materials, engage with your mentor. And if you haven't set up a certified training center, make sure you get one of those lined up within the next 90 days, and you will be on track, and you'll find that your chief aim, your purpose, and your results will all be congruent. With that, I love you and appreciate you. And Dr. Jeremy, thank you for joining me today.
Awesome. It was a blast. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Follow our show. You can share it with friends, of course. And we'd love for you to contact us at mailbag@amcfamily.com. In addition, you're always invited to attend or join us at a summit. Of course, registration is required. And we would love for you to check out the loads of free content we provide to social media every single week. Until next time.